The afternoon sun rested softly over a quiet city park where the sound of distant traffic mixed with the rustling of leaves. At a small wooden table near the walkway sat a young girl with two neat braids falling over her shoulders. Her name was Amara, and she was 9 years old. Across from her sat a man in a sharp navy suit. His watch shined in the sunlight and his confident smile carried the weight of someone used to winning every room he entered. The man was Victor Hale, a 52-year-old billionaire known in the city for his real estate empire and his love for public challenges. He leaned forward slightly, holding a white chess piece between his fingers as if it were a trophy. Behind Amara stood her mother Lena, 34 years old, wearing a simple work apron. She had just finished her shift at a nearby cafe and had stopped here because Amara loved the quiet tables in the park where older men played chess. Lena had never imagined that this afternoon would become a moment people would remember for years. Victor Hale laughed loudly, the sound echoing across the small square. $100 million if you beat me at chess, he said with a playful arrogance in his voice. Two photographers nearby lifted their cameras. Victor was famous for moments like this. He loved showing the world that success belonged to people who were bold enough to claim it. Amara looked down at the chessboard. Her small fingers moved a black pawn forward slowly. She did not smile. She did not react to the cameras. She simply studied the board. Lena felt her stomach tighten. "Mr. Hale," she said gently, "she is only a child." Victor waved his hand with confidence. "That is exactly why this will be entertaining." He leaned back in his chair. "I have defeated champions in charity tournaments. A child will not trouble me." A few people walking by began to gather around. Some smiled at the strange sight of a wealthy businessman challenging a young girl. Others shook their heads quietly. Amara moved another piece. Her eyes remained calm and focused. Victor made his move quickly. "You see," he said with a grin, "speed matters in chess." But Amara did not hurry. She took a slow breath and studied every corner of the board. Her mother knew that look. Amara had learned chess from her grandfather before he passed away 2 years earlier. Every evening he had sat with her at their small kitchen table teaching her patience. "Chess is not about winning quickly," he used to say. "It is about understanding the person across from you." Back in the park, Victor continued talking loudly as if performing for the small crowd. He told stories about business victories and clever deals. Each time he moved a piece he looked toward the photographers. But slowly something began to change. Victor's smile grew tighter. Amara moved her knight. Victor paused. He leaned closer to the board. "Interesting," he murmured. The crowd grew quiet. Amara said nothing. Her hands rested calmly on the table. Victor moved his queen with confidence. Then Amara moved a bishop across the board. Victor blinked. He studied the position again. For the first time his laughter disappeared. Several minutes passed in silence. The billionaire who had walked into the park with endless confidence now leaned forward with serious concentration. His fingers tapped the table. The photographers lowered their cameras slightly, sensing the tension. Finally Victor moved a rook. He smiled again, though the confidence felt thinner now. "Your move, young lady." Amara looked at the board. She thought about her grandfather's voice. She moved her queen. Victor froze. The crowd leaned closer. A man whispered, "Check." Victor stared at the board. He shifted his king. Amara gently moved her rook. "Checkmate." The word came from a quiet voice in the crowd. For a moment no one spoke. Victor Hale looked down at the board as if the pieces had betrayed him. The photographers lifted their cameras again, but now the story had changed. A billionaire who had entered with laughter now sat silent before a 9-year-old girl. Victor slowly leaned back in his chair. His face softened. Then something unexpected happened. He began to laugh again, but this time the sound was quieter, warmer. "Well," he said softly. "That was not what I expected today." He looked at Amara. "Young lady, where did you learn to play like that?" Amara finally spoke. "My grandfather taught me." Victor nodded slowly. "A good teacher." Lena placed her hand gently on Amara's shoulder. "Mr. Hale," she said softly, "we do not want any money." Victor looked surprised. "Why not?" Lena smiled gently. Because my father did not teach chess for money. He taught it so Amara would learn patience and respect. Victor sat quietly for a moment. The busy man who spent decades chasing success suddenly looked thoughtful. You know, he said slowly, I have spent my life winning deals and building towers. But today a child reminded me of something I forgot. He looked at Amara again. Victory means very little if it comes without humility. He reached into his pocket and removed a small gold pin shaped like a chess king. This was given to me years ago after my first major success, he said. Today I think it belongs to you. Amara looked at her mother. Lena nodded gently. Amara accepted the small pin. Thank you, sir. Victor stood up from the table. But before leaving he turned back. Young lady, the $100 million promise still stands in spirit. Instead of giving it to you directly, I will start a scholarship program in your grandfather's name. Children who love chess will be able to learn and study because of this moment. The crowd broke into soft applause. Lena wiped a tear from her eye. Sometimes she had worried that life was too hard for her daughter. But today she saw something powerful. Respect had crossed every line between wealth and poverty, between age and youth. Victor shook Amara's hand. Never stop thinking deeply, he said. The world needs more minds like yours. As the sun began to lower behind the city buildings, the small crowd slowly dispersed. The photographers walked away with a story very different from the one they expected. Victor Hale walked down the path quietly, no longer laughing loudly. And at the small table, Amara and her mother packed the chess pieces into a worn wooden box. Sometimes life teaches its greatest lessons in the simplest places. A park table. A quiet chessboard. And a humble mind willing to listen. This story reminds us that wisdom does not belong only to wealth or power. Sometimes it lives quietly inside a child who learned patience from a loving grandfather. And sometimes the greatest victory is learning to respect another human being. If this story touched your heart, please support the Black Voices. Like this video. Share it with someone who believes in kindness and wisdom. Subscribe to the Black Voices for more stories that celebrate humanity's strength and hope. And leave a comment telling us what lesson this story reminded you of. Your voice matters. And your story matters too.